Hey everybody, welcome to Two Out the First. It's August 27, 2024. I'm Ryan Balgi. Thanks for being here. We got a fair amount of things to talk about today. One thing I really want to focus on is what we're going to be seeing at East Lake this week and the new version of East Lake that we're going to see for the Tour Championship. Thanks for being here, whether you're catching us on the live stream or you're catching us after the fact as a podcast. We have plenty to talk about today. We have a little new graphics package too, so that's kind of exciting for me. I was working on that today. And we have another topic that I want to get to, which is the completion of the both U.S. and European Solheim Cup teams. The U.S. team was completed today, and that was completed with the announcement of some captain's picks from Captain Stacy Lewis. So, see down here, you got the rundown for the show, and looking forward to kind of going through all of that with you. So let's start with topic one, which is the new East Lake. So this week we have a new host, fundamentally a new host to the Tour Championship. Yes, it's still East Lake Golf Club. Yes, it's still Atlanta. Yes, it's still the East Lake neighborhood that has been one of the great transformational stories in recent memory of an American city. But East Lake Golf Club is fundamentally different than it was last year. This golf course got ripped up, torn up, kind of changed into a new golf course at the work of Andrew Green. Andrew Green is a fantastic architect. He has done so much great work. Most notably, I think people will recognize his work at Congressional, obviously here, and then also did work at Wilmington Golf and Country Club, which was the host of the BMW, not this year, but last year. Did a great job with that in Delaware. And the thing I really like about Andrew Green's work is his ability to chameleon his work and what he wants to accomplish relative to the architect. And he's done great work with Devereaux Emmett, with Donald Ross here, with Robert Trent Jones. And he has this ability to kind of understand what those architects were looking for in the places he's renovating, modernize it, update it, make significant changes where needed, but still keep it to the character of the place that it was. And I think he has successfully done that here with East Lake. And I was looking over news conference stuff. He had a news conference today, as did Victor Hovland, to kind of talk about. Victor Hovland's got to talk about more holistic things, not just East Lake Golf Club, but obviously Green being there to talk about what work he's accomplished, what he's going to expect, and then the players will obviously react to that ahead of the tournament over the course of the week. I thought it was really interesting. So I would go and look at the scorecard for the week, right? And it still is a par 71 golf course. So we have known this historically for the Tour Championship as a par 70, right? And they flipped the nines a few years ago for a good number of years of playing this championship. The end hole was a 240-ish yard par 3 from the tips, played uphill. That's the hole where Jim Furyk turned his hat backwards in the rain and made the putt to win the FedEx Cup, and that was kind of the probably the biggest moment in the history of that hole, to be honest. But that used to be the 18th hole, and then the hole before that used to be a hole that had just water up the left, and that was the hole where Bill Haas got the incredible shot from submerged halfway into the water to win the FedEx Cup for himself, right? Those are kind of the two most memorable shots I think of when I think about the FedEx Cup. And though that's now the front nine, that's been the front nine for several years. But what sounds like has happened is a couple of things. One, obviously Andrew Green did every green on the golf course, redid all of them. And he talks about in his news conference how he did them personally. He did them himself. He wanted to make sure he did it how he drew it up. And a lot of architects will do that. They'll get in the earth mover themselves, shape it, get a look at it. That's kind of the part they obsess over. And Andrew Green was like that here. But the interesting thing to me is 8 is now set up that it could potentially be a drivable par 4. And he talked about that, which I thought was really interesting. And then also 9 is now a little bit longer, actually, from the tips on the scorecard at 7,490 yards. It tips out as a 260-yard par 3. However, he also noted in his news conference, Andrew Green did, that the tour does not intend to use the back tee on either 9 or 15, what is now known as 15. 15 is the hole that's basically all over water, and you play like a 6 iron, 5 iron to the front of the green, and you hope it runs out. And the reason they're not going to use those bag tees on 9 or 15 is because the tour believes that the greens are too firm to showcase what the intended shot is there, that it might not even hold if you come in with a long iron or a hybrid or something like that, God forbid a metal wood, into 9. So they're not going to play from those tees this year. That changes the character of this golf course to a significant degree just on those 2 holes. The green on 9, Old 18 has been fundamentally changed. That's substantially different. The green on 15 sounds like it's not radically different, but it's still very firm. And that's going to be true of all 18 greens on the golf course, because they started ripping up this thing after the Tour Championship last year. And it sounds like a lot of the grow-in work really started to happen on this property after June 15th, in Andrew Green's words. So this is very much a new golf course. This is not a very mature golf course. It is not very well grown in. Not that the conditions are poor by any stretch, though. They did it right. However, the problem with any new golf course and playing on it competitively is that the earth has not settled. We move a lot of earth, especially around putting surfaces, probably improved drainage, all kinds of different facets that require moving soil. Well, that soil doesn't settle and compact right away. It gets more compact on the top, not naturally settles. So that creates a situation where you get a lot of bounce, get a lot of firmness, and you're going to see a lot of that from tee to green. The holes, especially that were reshaped substantially from tee to green, you're going to see a lot of run out. And that's going to create difficulties for a lot of these players, because the bounces that they knew, they're not going to be there. And one of the most interesting things that Andrew Green had to say in his news conference, I thought, was about 18 in particular. And 18 remains a par 5, right? It is on the scorecard now 585 yards. And as you know, it played downhill down to kind of a catch area. And if you hit the fairway, then that was the go zone from anywhere from 230, 220, 230, something like that, if you hit a good drive and caught the slope. Well, now that looks a little bit different. And Andrew Green seems very pleased that it has caught the attention of the players, and that they might have to think about playing 18 a little bit differently than they have in the past. The other thing to note, wall to wall, is that a big change is going from Bermuda to Zoysia. And Victor Hovland talked about this today in his news conference. And he gives the player's perspective, right? Someone who's won, he's the defending champion. He won here last year on a completely different golf course. And he says as much. He says he feels like he is defending on a completely different golf course, that it is very much a different test. Bunch of things he talked about, he noticed. First of all, he said, number one, I saw how completely different it was. It's way longer. If you look at the opening hole now, it's a 510-yard par 4. You'd be like 440 if I remember right. So you're gaining 70 yards out the gate right there. That changes things, that initial tee shot right away. And then he gets into some of the other things he noticed that were different. He said, he says the green areas are very important. He says, quote, as soon as I saw the green areas, I was like, okay, wow, this is going to be a completely different golf course, because now you have huge undulating greens with big runoffs. And instead of having tight Bermuda around the greens, you have really, really tight Zoysia. It's just going to play completely different. And that's kind of that's what tends to happen in modern restorations, renovations, whatever you want to call it, is that green surfaces get bigger, right? Over time, golf courses kind of tend to mow and move greens to a smaller size. It's just kind of natural human tendency. And so what a lot of architects do in a modern context is they make the greens bigger, and they also try to restore them to kind of what their original sizes were, plus a little bit of extra room. And obviously what's in vogue now is runoffs, right? You have not just fall off the green into rough, which is a lot of what the setup was at this golf course in prior years. You went into nasty Bermuda, got down deep. You were really just kind of hitting and hoping, and maybe you could control the ball. You probably hit a lot of flop shots or a lot of kind of bunker style shots to get out of there. Now you've got running areas. You've got running off areas into significant swales and areas where you're going to be chipping from even tighter lies. And with those even tighter lies, you're going to be allowed to be creative, but they may demand quite a bit of a player, especially on these firmer surfaces. So that's a really interesting thing that Hovland said as well. He was asked about 9, in particular, the 260-yard par 3. He said, quote, "I think it looks fine, but I also thought what it used to be was fine as well. I think maybe it was getting a little bit too severe toward the back portion of the old green, which I agree with. But now with the greens being so firm, if you put the tees all the way in the back, those left hole locations, I'm not even sure it would stop there. I think you might have to put the tee forward on that hole. But yeah, I thought it was okay. It wasn't my favorite hole." And I think Andrew Green is also thinking about this as an architect, not of a tour course, but a course with a varied membership, right? He's thinking about everybody. So he's trying to think about a player who might compete more from the 200-yard tees than the 260-yard tees they use 4 days a year for the most part, or for the East Lake Cup, maybe 8 days a year, that kind of thing. It is interesting that Hovland said, hey, maybe the left side's just too firm right now to be able to play. And then that leads into Andrew Green talking about, well, they're not going to use the back tee on that hole anyway this year. They may in future years, they may not. So as we understand number 9 over the years as being just a long brute of a par 3, that they may have come to a conclusion with last year's Tour Championship, for better or for worse, but it's a change to the golf course. And then I thought just a general ask of, hey, do you like these changes? And I like to hear from different players about this. I'm sure we will hear from more over the next couple of days, today and tomorrow. I want to hear from Hovland because he's got his own perspective about golf, and I think he's a thoughtful guy. And he says, I think if I would have been shown, in speaking of mine, I haven't been to the back 9 yet. He's only seen the front 9, but the front 9 is kind of indicative of the back. Then I would say, if I showed up here and I'd never seen the golf course before, then I would say, yeah, it looks pretty good. It's a pretty good golf course. Looks pretty hard as well. But just from being here 4 or 5 times before and just remembering what it used to be, I just think it was a way more kind of simplistic golf course before, but it was still simple, but very, very good. I'm still a little biased toward what it used to be. But I understand the whole look of the golf course. As soon as I stepped foot here and saw the green areas and stuff, I thought, okay, this is a major championship golf course. This seems like what he's tried to do with the place. And if you think about what he's done, he also did Congressional to make that look like a championship golf course and extend it out even more, make it more difficult, even though it could also be more playable for the membership from day to day. Finishes with saying, in my heart, it's like East Lake it never had that look. It's such a historic place. It's like, should we really try to make East Lake look like a major championship golf course? That's kind of the only place I'm at. But I don't think he's done a bad job. It's just the style of it. And Andrew Green does have a distinctive style. He does, even though have that kind of chameleon ability to look like the architect of the past, you can tell Andrew Green's work. And I think that's going to bother players for a little while. Some are going to love it. The architecture geeks will probably absolutely love it. But the guys who are not necessarily architectural geeks might not like it. And I think Hovland gets down to the reason why. Because tour players like predictability. They like something that's easy to figure out. They like the whole Tiger Woods mantra of, it's right there in front of you. There's no tricks. There's nothing complicated. Just hit the shot and do it. But when you change everything on them and you make them relearn something instead of doing it from memory, that's when you've gotten in their head. And I think that's what Andrew Green's happy about, where he says, oh, I'm in their head on 18. I'm in their head on different holes, because they're not doing the same thing they've been doing at this golf course for as long as they've had the Tour Championship here, which is 20 years in a row. So that to me is very fascinating, that he is in their head, that he's got them thinking about it, that they know it's tougher, it's firmer, it's faster. So in that sense, I think the new East Lake, at least this year, and then we'll see how it settles, but I think there is a greater advantage in the starting strokes this year than in previous years. And that is because I don't think players are going to perform quite as well against par as they have historically here since the format went to the starting strokes idea. If you look at the starting strokes years, you can get someone into the near 20 under par, combining everything to win the tournament and therefore win the FedEx Cup. If you have the winning score closer to 8 under par, 7 under par, 10 under par, all of a sudden each of those starting strokes value is magnified. And I think that's interesting. It's not something a lot of people are going to talk about, but it's something you should know about going into it. And I think it'll be a better test in the long haul. And I think this is what not only the East Lake Golf Club folks want, but the tour wanted. They wanted something that really represented that ultimate test, not something you could just kind of hit shots and probably works out as long as you keep it straight. As Andrew Green said in his news conference, there now has to be a clear intent and execution behind every shot. That's better for the player. Also looks better, performs better with Zoysia. It's a win for everybody. So that's all good. All right. Second topic for today is Solheim Cup picks. We have now both teams for the Americans and the Europeans. Remember, this is going to be in Northern Virginia, Robert Trent Jones Golf Club in just a few weeks' time, which is pretty wild to think about. So we've got the U.S. side. We had 9 qualifiers on the American team, and then there were 3 captains' picks that were announced today. Those 3 picks are Jennifer Kupcho, Sarah Schmelzel, and Lexi Thompson. And those join the 9 automatic qualifiers from the system that qualify the players, the point system. Nelly Korda, Lilia Vu, Lauren Coughlin, Allie Ewing, Allison Corpuz, Megan Kang, and Andrea Lee were the players who qualified through the point standings. And then Rose Zhang and Allison Lee were the next highest available players in the Rolex Women's World Golf Ranking. So they got on the team. And then Kupcho, Schmelzel, who's a rookie, and Thompson round out everything. Now, I think there's probably some surprises here among buddies of mine. We've got a group called the LPGA 6 who have been giving LPGA betting tips last, month or so. We've been having fun doing it, so please check it out. But I think there was a lot of surprise about Sarah Schmelzel making the team over Angel Yin. I tend to agree. Angel Yin's form, I believe, is better. I think she would be better suited to Robert Trent Jones Golf Club. I got the chance to play RTJ for the first time, even though this is an area course for me, but still about 45 minutes away, hour away. But that golf course is a brute. It is long. It is subject to a lot of wind. The targets are not easy. Length is going to matter on that golf course, depending on the. Stacey Lewis doesn't have ultimate say on the setup or anything like that, but she wants a golf course and said explicitly to me that she wants a golf course that rewards shot making, rewards quality ball striking, that you can't just escape from a bad shot, that there are penalties for bad shots. And that means there's additional value in length on your team, because if the rough is deep for everybody, you're going to want to hit it down there as far as you can, because if you wind up in the rough, you have the best opportunity to get to the green and score. Also, on a longer golf course, you're going to have the better opportunity for longer players. And if you look at this lineup, you're not sitting on a lot of players who are just pounding the ball off the tee. So I think that's a little surprising to have Sarah Schmelzel on there. I think Jennifer Kupcho can be a great partner and also be a great match play partner in the right context. And that's a tricky one there. But obviously, Stacey Lewis feels how she does and wants her to be an asset on the team. And then Lexi Thompson, I knew was never going to not be part of this. She was going to be part of this the entire time. So at the media day, there was Lexi Thompson. And you had Stacey Lewis and Lexi Thompson on the stage. And you knew Lexi was nowhere really near it on the standings, right? But to have her show up, it can only really insinuate one of two things. Either she's on the team or going to be on the team, or she's going to be the next captain for the 2026 matches, which is in the Netherlands, which both of those things can also be true, by the way. She could be the captain for 26 and playing this year. But she had her send-off from the major championships at the AIG Women's Open, and here she is on this team again. She was a controversial pick last time. She showed up when it mattered. She played a number of good, tight matches, but ultimately the U.S. gave away a 4-0 lead after the first session, and that was a shocking outcome that the Europeans were able to hold on to the Solheim Cup for a third consecutive cup. Now they're looking at an unprecedented fourth in a row for their side, and now the European side is complete. The European team had a slightly different set of qualifications for them than this time around, and they had 4 captains picks. It was for Suzanne Pedersen, who was again once again back. So they just kept the captains the same because they're doing it in back-to-back years. So the 4 picks that were made by Suzanne Pedersen, they were really made more based on feel than anything. And that worked for her last year, I think, at Courtesine. And I think that there was a pushback initially to, well, what is she basing on these decisions on? Why is she partnering these people? Why are these people getting thrown out there? And it worked. It worked enough that they were able to hold on to the cup. They were bad out the gate, and then they got better. And if you throw away the 4-0, they destroyed the Americans. So there's something to that. There's something to knowing your players. But to have Anna Nordquist out there, Emily Peterson, who had a hole in one at the last Solheim Cup. You had Georgia Hall out there. Is a captain's pick. This is a good team. This is an interesting, formidable team. You had Celine Boutier. You had Carlotta Saganda, who's the stalwart. Lynn Grant. You have Georgia Hall again. Esther Hensleit, who's a rookie, who was the silver medalist in the Olympics and has had a very, very good year. Charlie Hall was going to be on. Leona McGuire is a match play dog. Again, Nordquist, Peterson, Madeline Sagstrom's a part of the team once again. Maya Stark. And Albane Valenzuela is the final captain's pick. She's going to be the other of 2 rookies on this European side. Valenzuela, I don't think, is the best fit for this golf course because she's not a particularly long hitter. She is more of an accurate hitter, though. So she could be a potentially interesting pairing for better ball, where pars could matter. And Stacey Lewis has outright said she wants par to win some holes in the match play experience that you're going to get here at the Solheim Cup in just a few weeks' time. So 2.5 weeks from now, that's when we get underway at Robert Trent Jones Golf Club. We will be there with Golf Newsnet TV, doing live shows, doing live programming, leading into the Solheim Cup. And then obviously we'll let the event speak for itself Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be a great time at Robert Trent Jones Golf Club. I'm really excited in particular for Lauren Coughlin, who is going to get a great chance to shine out after an incredible year, couple of wins, gets to play in front of her Virginia fans, and she's going to be really well received. So good for her. That's going to be great. Last thing to talk about on the show today, and we're going to try to start fitting in these kind of 1-2 minute things here at the end, just because there is so much to talk about some days that we can't just stick to 2 topics. So there's a third topic, and it's a short one. And I have become increasingly, I don't know if concern's the right word, but kind of weirded out by the things Anthony Kim has talked about on Twitter and X. And you're entitled to your political opinions. That's one thing, and I feel like that's kind of its own realm. Like, obviously a lot of people in golf are conservative, and that is totally okay. You could be liberal or conservative, so long as you have a rational point of view and we can have a rational conversation. Either way, that's fine. But when you're kind of spreading stuff like Anthony Kim is, and he was tweeting about that they are putting kitty litter in classrooms for kids who are non-binary or whatever to use the bathroom or identify as cats, or I don't even know where it's coming from, but putting that out there and then trying to use the platform that he has, because he is a very successful professional golfer and is now back in the limelight, and just putting that information out there, and then just the replies to him are, that's not true, that's not real, this read Snopes.com, and then him just kind of responding like, oh no, they do it, this is how it is. With I come back to the Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility. With a huge platform, you have a responsibility, I think, to try to at least be truthful. You may not come out with the same conclusion of the same set of information, but if at least we're all working off of the right set of information, the same set of truth, the same set of basic facts, you can come to different conclusions, but let's start from the same place. I wish that Anthony Kim hadn't said those things and doesn't kind of spew that out to the world, but I just felt like I had to say something about that. I wished better, and I don't want a world where athletes don't say anything, don't say their political beliefs or their heartfelt ethics and morals and principles. I think that's important too. I think it's important to be yourself and to be able to be yourself, and that's great. That's good. But let's all kind of at least start from the same basic fact sheet. And then I think we're all better off together. This is how we got this divided as a country, by working off different sets of facts, or what we think are facts, And if we could kind of come back together, something closer to that on everything, not just politics, but everything we talk about on this show, just in life, I think we'd be a better country, better people, better culture. So just a couple seconds about that. That's going to do it for us today on the show. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. Appreciate it. Let me know some thoughts on the new graphics package. We got a little bit of a change here. So hopefully you're enjoying that. If not, let me know. We can always kind of change things around, but hopefully you're enjoying it. I'm going to try and make it look a little bit better as we get ready for TV and give you something more easy to follow each and every day. Check out Swannies. They're our sponsor of the show. They're a presenting sponsor. They're great. Great threads for fall. It's here. Swannies.co. Promo code GolfNewsNet25. Save 25% on your first order. Back with another show tomorrow. We're going to have some more reaction to the new East Lake. We'll talk a little bit about the President's Cup as well. We've got most of those teams, well, half of those teams basically, finalized on both sides. I want to talk about that a little bit as we get ready for Royal Montreal. And we've got a couple other events this week, the FM Championship on the LPGA and the Betfred British Masters on the DP World Tour, hosted by Sir Nick Faldo. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. Catch you on the next show. See you next time on Two Up the First. Have a great afternoon, everybody.